During my early years in Ohio, my memories are hearing R&B 60s love songs on the radio, being the only people of color in our neighborhood, with me belting out Miss Black America on the back porch and being horrified in church, watching people foaming at the mouth and women being covered with sheets. I had to be at least 5 years old, so that would have been 1971, making my half brother only 1 year old. I'm sure I'll get some timelines confused. In 1971, that would have put my family on the road to Chicago. Had a lot of tough times, but I'm forever grateful for the Windy City being my roots. Elementary school was an international awakening. I was exposed to children from all over the world, and our apartment building reflected the aromas of kitchens around the world at dinner time. I knew what curry, gumbo, fried rice, and lobster tails were before I was 8 years old. In my little mind, I believed that when I asked to be excused to go to the bathroom, that my parents wouldn't notice that my cheeks were full of sweet peas. Looking back on it now, I know that they knew. Question is, did they let me get away with it, or did I get a beating that I don't remember? Life was good. TV was even better. Schoolhouse Rock, Soul Train, and the Jackson 5 on Saturday mornings and afternoons, Sesame Street, The Electric Company, and Free to Be You and Me during the week. I still have vivid memories of registering to start school, the shots I had to get, shopping for school supplies like the big pink erasers and number two pencils, walking to school with friends and classmates, stopping at the corner store to buy candy on the way, and having cold bologna and cheese sandwiches, an apple, and a half pint carton of milk for lunch. I still remember my homeroom teacher's name, and no, I haven't Googled her yet. Skyscrapers, high rise condos, and Lakeshore Drive was everyday scenery for me. My extended family was a couple sets of aunts and uncles, a few cousins, great grandmother and grandmother, all on my dad's side of the family. From my perception, things were great. Life was awesome, even with the underlying effects of the civil rights movement. My parents even attended a push expo, I think, or maybe there was so much news coverage on TV that I felt like they really did attend. Don't know. Then things started falling apart at home. Home life wasn't all that bad as I look back on that particular time in my life. The typical sibling fights, parental heated arguments, occasional plumbing issues, and noisy neighbors. Then out of nowhere, it was like a storm that wouldn't let up. My parents were definitely going through something, but to their credit, my brother and I were kept very well distracted. He was only 3 or 4, so keeping him occupied couldn't have been that difficult, of course, from my perspective. I, on the other hand, had a good network of friends to visit with after school and to attend a few karate classes with. We even got a few chances to hang out at what was then called the Boys Club or the Boys Club of America, where the youth could go and participate in various activities, kind of like gym class at night. We played basketball, dodgeball, and board games. Girls were allowed to participate as well, but the place was created mainly for boys to have an outlet. Actually, I think it's now called the Boys and Girls Club of America. My dad's failed attempt to get me more involved with boys' activities led me right to more girls. He was so taken aback that a place made for boys allowed girls to be involved too. I remember him saying he was trying to get me away from hanging out with girls all the time. Girls were the least of my problems. I admit to having a couple encounters with girls at an early age. but nothing like what was going on with a couple of boys. The storm at home was so confusing to an 8-year-old. Nervous breakdown, stress, whatever those demons were back in the 70s, they were definitely at my house. Of course, being kids, we had no idea what was going on. All we knew was dad wasn't around as much, and mom and dad both were working to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. Then dad was away more often, and mom started acting very strange. I remember setting up forts to play with in and being careful not to be too rough on the beanbag chairs, because if they burst, a billion tiny foam pellets would be everywhere. Mom would take us to fabric stores in downtown Chicago because she used to make some of our clothes, even items for dad and herself. I can hear her voice now saying, "Don't touch a thing and don't act up or I'll tell your dad." She would also take us to a beautiful theater with breathtaking architecture that used to show the latest horror movies. I know, talk about being distracted. My dad didn't want us to see Jaws because he said if we saw it, we would be afraid to swim in the lake. Little did he know we were exposed to much more horror than Jaws. I'm talking the kind of movies that led up to The Exorcist, and we weren't scared. I guess we thought we were having grown up fun. Then the next thing I knew, mom was on her way to the hospital one night to get some rest, they said.